Time to party in the street.
For the first time in the many years I've been coming to Coronation Street to visit old friends, I'm not nipping into the Rovers for my usual pint of spring water. The subject of my attentions tonight has just popped into Fiona's hair salon to be titivated. She loves that. She'll only be there about 6 hours, but I'll net her eventually. Meanwhile, I'll get a cup of tea.
Sorry, we're closed.
Oh, don't we know you?
Oh. Well, we know who you're after. Mum's the word.
Good, thank you. Listen, no chance of a cup of tea, is there?
You'll have to be quick.
You're the boss. Thank you very much.
She's done. She's coming out, quick.
Audrey? Oh, how's Alf?
Excuse me interrupting. The hair looks beautiful, but I didn't come all the way to wintry Weatherfield just to say that. I came to say, Audrey Roberts, alias Sue Nicholls, tonight, this is your life.
You've got to be joking. I don't believe this. I'm going to cry.
Oh, good. That's what we do here. Do you want to take my arm and I'll take you from this? The hair does look lovely. And it's going to rain, so we'll go. Now, as you've noticed, already gathered here, Sue, your parents, your sister, more family and friends.
My mum-in-law.
And colleagues, and who know you best, of course, as Coronation Street actress Sue Nicholls, in real life, the daughter of a man who became a lord of the realm. You first showed your talent to entertain as a child, learnt your craft in repertory theatre, and even made it to Broadway. Not only that, you fitted in a burst of pop stardom, but to millions you are Audrey Roberts, for the while at least, the First Lady of Weatherfield. You first ruined your stilettos on the cobbles of Coronation Street on April the 14th, 1979.
Gail, there's a visitor for you.
Hello, love.
Mother.
Oh, God. One of these days you'll sound glad to see me. Oh, have you seen this? I mean, have you?
Yes, I've seen it. It's a very nice coat.
Oh, Phil, look, I am a laughing stock in this. I really am.
Well, you chose it.
Oh, yeah, but last year. Oh, could I? Oh. What's she doing there? It's Turpin, the Williams, whatever she's called, getting her mugging again.
Now, in your time, Sue, you also shared scenes with someone you know quite well away from the street. To the fans, he was the evil Alan Bradley. In 1989, he was television's biggest baddie. Here's how more than 20 million viewers saw him get his comeuppance on a trip to the seaside.
Go back, you stupid bitch!
Well, not so much a comeuppance as a down-underance. Wisely, he came by car tonight. Your husband, Mark Eden. Seems quite a nice chap, really. You and Sue had met years before you worked in the street together.
Yes, it was real Mills and Boon stuff. I was invited to a party. It was Saturday, the 31st of July, 1983, I arrived, walked into the garden, and under a cherry tree, a flowering cherry tree, stood this lady in a white dress. And I asked to be introduced to her, and...
The best, I didn't have spots that night, and the best I've ever looked.
Anyway.
I've never looked that good since. This darling man, all weekend, has been telling me to get my roots done. He doesn't usually care. Usually it's that kind of thing to me. And he said, darling, and he made me Saturday at 5 o'clock ring my hairdresser to book the appointment for this morning, which I could have well done with that. And now it all fits into place.
You were married on the 6th of July, 1993. Now, you probably see a bit less of each other these days, with Coronation Street going to 4 episodes a week. And for the show's many fans, here is a bonus. For one night only, ITV's biggest crowd pullers have come to the BBC. Now, Helen Wells, I must have a quick word with you, because you play Sue's long-suffering screen daughter, and you've had a lot to put up with.
Very long-suffering, yeah. Of course, she's not a bit like that. Sue's not a bit like Audrey, and shows what a fine actress she is. And we all agree, I think, the very best of fun to work with.
Oh, only.
Well, Sue Nicholls, this is your life. Or more correctly, the Honourable Susan Frances Nicholls, this is your life. Born on November the 23rd, 1943 in Walsall in the Midlands, you were the second daughter of Harmer and Peggy Nicholls. There you are with your big sister, Judith.
Yes, isn't she lovely?
You became honourable, if you see what I mean, in 1974 when, after a successful career as an MP, your father was made a life peer. There you are together outside Parliament. But Lord Harmer Nicholls, Harmer, was young Sue into party politics?
The only party that she ever enthused about was her grandmother's parties at the White Lion pub, where we always had lots of parties and had to do your turn, and Sue was always well up front and usually finished top of the list.
Oh, darling.
And that pub was run by your father?
He did, yes. He was a minor until he was 30, and then he achieved what miners in those days thought was real success, to become the landlord of a local pub, and that was the beginning of it.
Judith, there were plenty of performances at home as well.
Oh, lots of performances, yes. Every weekend we'd put song and dance shows on, if you remember, Sue. And yes, we had a lovely bay window with curtains that drew across, so it was a perfect stage for little performers.
But you proved a natural in front of the camera too, always a ready smile as this flicked through the family album shows. At the age of 5, you go to Woodland Grange School in Wednesbury. And one day, Lady Nicholls, Peggy, a costume mix-up wiped the smile from Sue's face.
At the school, at the dame school she was at, they always had little affairs, you know, things from time to time, and Sue always took part. And this particular place, I must have fouled, which mothers always do, and never sent with the right costumes. So there she was, holding forth as the pipes of Pan in the wrong sort of knickers. And they had sort of contrived to dress her in the brown knickers, and heavens knows what colour they were. But anyhow, it makes a wonderful photograph.
Your performances were always big draws. Yes. Meanwhile, your businessman father was rising through the ranks of local government, and then in 1950 he was elected Conservative MP for Peterborough. In 1953, when you were 9, you became a boarder at St Mary and St Anne's School, Abbots Bromley. What with the school choir, drama productions and reading contests, the performing bug had bitten. You shared the symptoms with a young apprentice hairdresser. Those days are recalled by another of his famous clients, speaking to you now from her room at the rundown home for the elderly in Somerset, unhinged tonight, Dame Hilda Brackett.
Oh, yes. Sue! Hello, dear. I remember saying years ago to Peggy Ashcroft, not your mother, that you would go a long way, and you have. It's a long time since Mrs. Dale's diary. You were wonderful. Now, I want to take you back to when you were 15 in Stafford. And Peggy, your mother, not Ashcroft, took you to have your hair cut by a young man called Patrick. Well, he sends his very best wishes to you, my dear. And he's very old now, but he's still putting it up for me. Anyway, have a lovely time, my dear. Evadne doesn't want to be remembered to you, because when I said you were on the street, she said, forget it. So, bye-bye from me, my dear. God bless. Have a lovely time.
We comb the country, and nearly 40 years on, that hairdresser she mentioned is here, Patrick Fife. Patrick.
Yes, it's really me. You've done very, very well. Yeah.
Tell us about your brush with Sue.
Peggy, Nicholls, not Ashcroft, came in to have her hair done, and she said, could I possibly have my hair done? And I asked, and they said, yes, it was fine. And she said, I've got 2 daughters at home at the moment, around about your age, and I think you'll get on very well.
And we did.
And we ended up playing the piano and went on for years, didn't it?
Thank you, and love to the ladies as well.
Oh, love to the ladies.
God bless.
After school, you win a place at a drama school, RADA, no less. Here tonight is your good friend from those days, Hildegard Neal. You graduate in January 1963, and you go after a job with one of the country's leading theatrical producers.
When you first worked with me, Sue, there was no chance of forgetting your lines.
The man who raised the curtain for you, Charles Vance.
Indeed.
So, Charles, she was word perfect.
Yes, it wasn't difficult. She had nothing to say. A year later, approximately, 40 plays later, she began to be recognised. She got her first press comments, her first crits, and then came a wonderful moment when she got a rave review for her performance in Mary, Mary, and Sue had arrived.
Oh,
Charles, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue.
Well, that review for Mary, Mary came in July 1964. The critic praised your memorable performance and suggested the show could be renamed Susan, Susan. Towards the end of 1964, during another run in Wolverhampton, you heard that actors were needed for a new Birmingham-based television series. It wasn't in the Jobs Vacant column, was it?
No, almost. No, it wasn't. It was for Crossroads. Is that what you're...
That's what I'm working around.
I am listening to you.
Yes.
Because
how did you hear
I'm
about
still in shock. I'm not quite with it, so I am listening, and I'm looking at your mouth.
Your Midland roots paid off, you won the role of Marilyn Gates, and you checked into a motel that became part of television folklore Crossroads.
Just to get rid of him, I said I'd see him tomorrow night.
The poor boy, there he is. In love with Marilyn, pining away, and she thinks it's a bit of a lark.
I didn't mean that. What I meant was, when I first started going out with him, I had no intention of things getting serious.
Women, how does the poor boy know this?
Oh, look, Carlos, you can't expect me to marry every chap I go out with, can you?
Now, your character had designs on that member of staff, Carlos, the continental chef, your good friend, Tony Morton.
Tony!
Carlos and Marilyn meet again.
Marilyn was fascinated with this Latin chef and went to great lengths to attract his attention. In one episode, she drenched herself in cheap scent and then, flaunting her locks in his direction, she said, "Carlos, can you smell anything?" And he said, "The sausage is burning."
I love
See you
this
later.
man.
See
We had
you later.
such fun.
Thank you, Tony. In 1968, after 4 years of household fame, Sue Nicholls' soap star turned pop star. A song you performed on Crossroads became a spin-off success in the charts. You hit the top 20 with Where Will You Be?
Oasis.
No, don't say too much, because that song was written by the man behind the Crossroads theme tune, as well as Neighbours and a string of international hits flown in from his home in Spain, Tony Hatch.
Actually, the song wasn't written for Sue Nicholls in the first place. It was written for your character.
That's right.
In Crossroads. And as soon as it was broadcast, well, the telephone lines went mad, the public wanted it, and so we released it as a record, and it became a hit.
Yeah.
And 30 years later, she's still waiting for the follow-up.
Yes.
In the meantime, I thought you might like to record What's It All About, Alfie?
Oh, yeah.
And I'll start working on something else. She is an absolute natural. She is always known in the recording studio as One Take Sue.
What's that?
And, yes.
Had to do with my singing, wasn't it?
And the result was one hit Sue as well.
Oh.
Darling. We'll try another one.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. I am very grateful to Tony, and what a thrill to see you again. It's so... Oh, it's terrific.
Lovely to see you.
In 1970, inspired by your success as a singer, you waltz off to the bright lights of Vienna to join a show called Les Girls.
Oh, my God.
All
yes.
very glamorous. But David Rayner, it wasn't quite the show that your friend thought it would be.
Don't get him to say anything.
I had a call very late one night.
Oh, God, what's he going to say?
She'd only been gone about a week. She'd only been in Vienna about a week, and she was sobbing her heart out. I couldn't understand what she was talking about, and she kept saying, "What's the matter with me?"
Oh,
and
what's he going to say?
"There's nothing. What are you talking about? What's wrong with me?" And "There's nothing wrong with you." "Then why am I not even in with the out crowd here?"
Back home, away from the showgirl feathers, you were sent to Coventry for Panto at the Hippodrome Theatre, and you cleaned up your act.
Yes, I was Cinderella and you were my fairy liquid.
She's too
Anita
beautiful.
Harris.
She's too beautiful.
Anita, Sue, I imagine, was no ordinary fairy.
No, she certainly was no ordinary fairy. Well, every pantomime has a fairy queen, and we all love working with queens and fairies. But most of them have a wand and a tutu and ballet shoes. Sue's fairy queen, well, she was all of a beehive hairdo, PVC raincoat, thigh-length leather boots, as you can see. She was armed with a bottle of squeezy, and she was called Fairy Liquid. For me, that was the original Patsy, and she was absolutely fabulous. Seriously, I think everybody loves Sue. She's a great team player. She's fun to be with, and to share the stage with her is a delight. And we had such a lovely time. I'm so proud for you this evening.
Thank you, Anita, very much. Well, you bring a touch of glamour to a string of shows, including The Amorous Prawn.
Oh, yes.
And then, in 1974, you joined a triumphant Royal Shakespeare Company production of London Assurance. The plan was to tour Canada and America with a run on Broadway.
But, Sue, darling, as you know, Things didn't work out quite according to plan.
And it was we who ended up running back home.
Your distinguished co-stars, Donald Sinden and Elizabeth Spriggs. So this was not a tour de force.
No. Well, after the first night, one of the backers pulled out. Oh, really? And we couldn't have continued without wonderful Eddie Kolokundis, but we did eventually get to New York. We were put in a hotel which we discovered was used by ladies of the night. One of them was found murdered in her bath the next day, so we all moved out. The theatre that we were in was enormous, much too big for our little play. They'd put us in 3 weeks before Christmas, which is deadly for any straight play to go in at that time. And they'd given us no publicity, and then they gave us our notice. And also told us about 5 days before Christmas, we had to perform on Christmas Day. We were appalled and all wanted to come home. And Donald tried to help out enormously.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
My wife and I scouted around trying to find a restaurant that would be open on Christmas Day for lunch.
That's a wonderful plan.
And we went to this awful place. It was ghastly, and the meal was awful. The turkey arrived after the soup, didn't it?
Yes.
And the vegetables arrived after the Christmas pudding.
Yes.
And it was all absolutely disastrous. Sue was irrepressible, and she kept us all out.
Adorable.
Yes. Well done, darling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Well, the following year, you also put on a brave front to appear on television with Hilda Baker. You were outstanding. In 1979, you made the first of a number of occasional appearances on Coronation Street. Yes. In those days, you played Audrey Potter. That was when Annie Walker ruled the Rovers and Elsie Tanner fought her corner. In spite of all your experience, it must have been a big step for you.
I was petrified. In fact, it was a joy to do the scenes because actually sitting around in the rehearsal room and the green room with all these people that you'd seen yourself was far too nerve-wracking. I have to say, they didn't know this possibly, but even on the tour of London Assurance, I fainted when we had a notes session in Canada, do you remember? I fainted. I had to leave the room. I mean, I'm that pathetic. So can you imagine? So going into the street was equally faintable. But somehow I managed, thanks to my fellow actors and directors, etc.
And soon, Audrey snared her shopkeeper husband, Alf.
Poor darling,
Brian
yes.
Moseley can't be here tonight, but he sends this message.
Oh, bless him.
Hello, Mummy.
Hello, Daddy.
I'm sorry I can't be with you on this great night, but I had to do with the square dealers, and you know what they're like.
Yes.
Anyway, I expect you had time to dash out in my new frock, so send the bill to Alfie, will you? Not me. So have a good night, and chin up. I'll see you very soon. God bless you. Norma sends her love too.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Brian. Well, away from the streets, you had become a fantasy figure as Secretary Joan Greengrass in The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin.
Nice dress, Joan, is it new?
I've had it 3 years. Right, I'm ready. I said I'm ready.
Ready for what?
The writer David Nobbs created your character as a younger and more glamorous alternative to Reggie's wife. Now, Pauline Yates, you played Mrs. Perrin. There wasn't really any contest, was there?
No, she was the best. She was so warm and friendly. We just got on immediately. But I just want to talk about her work for the Arthritis and Rheumatism Council. She does a great deal of work on their behalf. And a bit of it rubbed off on me recently because I had my hip replacement. But despite a very heavy schedule, she was the first to come and visit me in hospital.
Oh, my God.
And she spread a little happiness around the ward.
I don't know that I
You
did. Created chaos, but
Well, viewers still saw you doing other things. You were in The Professionals, The Gentle Touch, and the children's shows Pipkins and Rent-A-Ghost.
Yes.
And in 1985, you joined the hit comedy Up the Elephant and Round the Castle with Jim Davidson.
Hello, Michael, and hello, Sue. Do you remember when you played the part of Wanda Pickles and I played the part of Jim London?
Yeah.
Yeah, she used to come into my little flat, sit down at my table and have a nice cup of tea. Yeah. Cast your mind back. Now, what do you want in the nicest possible way?
Oh, pity. Well, I had to tell you now. I was reading my stars this morning and it said, someone dear to you will receive a promotion. 5 minutes later, I get this letter saying my stand in Parkhurst is being moved from solitary confinement into maximum security. What do you think of that?
Brilliant, yeah. At this rate, it could be Ed Walder by the end of the week, couldn't it? Yeah. Well, have a good night, Sue, and one day I might see you as a guest on the Generation Game for a bit of sophisticated comedy.
Well, thank you, Jim. 1985 sees you move in as a full-time resident of Coronation Street, establishing you as one of the most famous faces on television, something your father is often aware of at the House of Lords, right, Harmer?
Yes, we all have to share the reflected glory, whether you want it or not. Almost every day in Parliament, when I'm walking along the corridors, and I've been there for 47 years, members will be bringing their constituents or friends to show them round. And as I walk past, I hear my name mentioned. And I think, oh, well, perhaps something I've done will be remembered. But as I'm walking past, they say, that's Audrey out of Coronation Street. He's the father.
Well, Sue, it's literally streets away from the day when 33 years ago you made your debut with a non-speaking part in a play in Weston-super-Mare. Also appearing way down the cast list was another star in the making. These days he's enjoying huge success in America, where he's become a household name. But he cleared his diary for you tonight so that he could say...
I'm free!
John Inman! So, John, you were in at the start of Sue's career.
Oh, no. Oh, I was there when she started. She was wonderful. Actually, she didn't have anything to say, and I played PC Boot in that production.
I ASM'd for you.
You did, darling, and beautifully.
I checked your props and everything.
Please, no, there's people. No, she was also a fairy with me with a limp wand, and I used to say, get off, you're getting too many laughs. Get off. Oh, but it wasn't until I saw her in Crossroads pick up that fork off the table and clean her nails with it. You remember that?
I was told to do it. He probably told me.
I knew then that there was a star sitting there. And here you are, my love, and you are
Well, I'm not a star, but how...
You are, not only on, but off. I adore you, I adore you.
Thank you, John. Sue Nicholls, this is your life.